Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive, where we take your source material and really zero in on what you need to know.
Exactly. No fluff, just the core ideas so you can get informed quickly.
And today, we're tackling a foundational document for the COBIT 2019 framework, specifically the Introduction and Methodology Guide.
Mm-hmm. And our plan really is to walk you through chapters 4 and 5. Think of it like we're guiding you through the main points, breaking down the basics of the governance system first.
And then looking at the actual governance and management objectives that make it PIC.
Because, let's be honest, information and technology, INT, as COBIT calls it, is everything to an enterprise these days.
Absolutely. And governing it effectively, EDG, that's not just a nice to have anymore, is it? It's essential for value, for risk, for hitting those strategic targets.
Right. And this framework, COBIT, it gives you a structured way to think about all that. This document is really the starting point for understanding the building blocks it offers.
So let's get straight into Chapter 4. Basic Concepts, Governance System and Components. Section 4.1 kicks things off with the big picture view of the COBIT 2019 family.
Yeah, it lays out the main publications. You've got this one we're looking at, the intro and methodology, that's the foundation.
Then there's the Governance and Management Objectives doc, which dives deep into the 40 core objectives.
And the design guide, which is all about tailoring COBIT, making it fit your context.
Plus the Implementation Guide, which, well, it does what it says on the tin, helps you put it into practice.
And a really key thing the source emphasizes right away is that COBIT 2019 is designed to be open-ended. It's not rigid.
Right. It pulls in other standards, allows for community input, and Figure 4.1 visually shows how you end up with a tailored system.
Exactly. Influenced by things like design factors and focus areas, which we'll get to, all built on the core COBIT model, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all checklist.
That visual really helps. You adapt it, you don't just apply it blindly.
Which leads nicely into Section 4.2 and a really fundamental distinction COBIT makes. Governance versus management objectives. What's the core idea there?
Well, basically, to hit your big enterprise goals using INT, you need to achieve specific INT-related objectives first.
Mm-hmm. And COBIT draws a very clear line between the types of activities and who's typically responsible.
Yeah, this is that key boundary. Governance is about evaluate, direct, monitor, EDM.
Think board-level executive management. Their job is to evaluate the needs, the options, direct the organization on the path forward, and then monitor that things are working and compliant.
While management handles the rest, align, plan, organize, APO, build, acquire, implement, BAI, deliver, service, support, DSS, and monitor, evaluate, assess, MEA.
Right. This is more your senior and middle management folks. They take the direction from governance and actually, plan it, build it, run it, and monitor the day-to-day activities to make it all happen.
So those objectives get grouped into 5 domains: EDM for governance, and the other 4 APO, BAI, DSS, MEA for management.
And the verbs themselves, evaluate, direct, monitor versus align, plan, organize, and so on, they give you a really good sense of the focus. It's that clear split. Oversight versus getting things done.
Okay, so achieving objectives driven by this governance management split, that's the goal.
Yeah.
But how do you actually do it? Section 4.3 talks about the components of the governance system. What are these?
This is a great insight from COBIT. A governance system isn't just about processes on paper. It's made up of different types of components that all have to work together holistically.
Yeah, I like that point.
Yeah.
It's not just paperwork, it's the whole system. Your governance is only as strong as the weakest link among these components.
Yeah, exactly. So the source lists 7 types. You've got, first, processes, the actual organized activities.
Okay.
Second, organizational structures, the decision-making bodies, the roles, who decides what.
Makes sense.
Third, principles, policies, and procedures. Basically, the rules of the game.
The guidelines.
Fourth, information. All the data needed for the system to work, performance reports, risk assessments, that kind of thing.
Crucial. Fifth, culture, ethics, and behavior. This is huge. The mindset, the values, how people actually operate.
Often overlooked, but vital.
Sixth, people, skills, and competencies. Do you have the right people with the right skills?
Can't do anything without them.
And seventh, services, infrastructure, and applications. The tech itself that supports everything.
Got it. So these 7 components are what you use to achieve those objectives.
Right. And again, tying back to tailoring, these can be generic from the core model, or they can be variants you adapt for specific needs.
Speaking of specific needs, Section 4.4 introduces focus areas. What are those exactly?
A focus area is pretty straightforward. It's just a specific governance topic or issue. Think cybersecurity or digital transformation, maybe privacy that gets addressed by a specific collection of objectives and components, maybe tailored for that theme.
So, like applying COBIT principles specifically to cloud computing or to the challenges of a small business. Precisely. The source lists examples like small and medium enterprises, cybersecurity, digital transformation, cloud, privacy, DevOps. These are areas needing maybe a special lens.
It says the number is virtually unlimited.
Yeah, which again just highlights how flexible and open-ended the framework aims to be. New focus areas can emerge.
Okay, so we've got objectives, the components to achieve them, and focus areas for specific topics. How do you figure out which objectives or focus areas are most critical for your company? That sounds like where design factors come in, section 4.5.
Design factors are absolutely key. They're the elements that influence how you should design your governance system, how you prioritize things to make it work in your specific context.
Right, makes sense. The source lists 11 categories. The design guide goes into the how, but this doc tells us what they are.
And understanding these forces you to think about your own business realities, things like your overall enterprise strategy, your enterprise goals.
Your risk profile, any specific INT issues or pain points you're facing right now.
The threat landscape you operate in, your compliance requirements, those are huge external drivers.
And then there are factors about how IT operates internally, like what's the actual role of IT? Is it just support or is it strategic?
Your sourcing model, are you mostly in-house, outsourced, heavily cloud? Your IT implementation methods, agile, waterfall, something else?
Your technology adoption strategy, are you leading edge or more cautious? And even just your enterprise size.
It's really helpful to look at a couple of the examples from the tables in the source, just to see how they play out.
Good idea.
Take enterprise strategy, that's figure 4.5. If your company strategy is all about growth acquisition, you're going to prioritize INT governance differently than a company focused purely on cost leadership.
Yeah, totally different needs for agility, integration, maybe risk appetite too.
Or look at INT-related issues in figure 4.8. If you're constantly dealing with, say, significant IT-related incidents, or there's a lot of frustration between IT and the business,
then your governance design absolutely has to focus on the objectives that tackle those specific problems head on.
and compliance requirements, figure 4.10. That's often a non-negotiable. If you're in a heavily regulated sector, your requirements are high.
Which automatically bumps up the importance of any objective related to compliance, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Compared to a business with low compliance needs. So these factors directly shape your priorities and how you might need to adapt components.
So these design factors guide the priorities. Then section 4.6, the goals cascade, seems to show how you connect everything back to the business needs systematically.
Right. This is COBIT's mechanism for answering that why are we doing this question. It translates high-level stakeholder needs into concrete actions and, crucially, into specific INT objectives.
How does the cascade flow?
It starts with stakeholder drivers and needs, which then translate into enterprise goals. These then flow down into alignment goals, and finally, those link directly to the governance and management objectives we discussed earlier. Figure 4.16 shows it visually.
Okay, so let's break that down. Enterprise goals, figure 4.16. Those are the big business objectives.
Yes, exactly. Often framed using something like the balanced scorecard dimensions: financial, customer, internal, growth.
Like portfolio of competitive products and services, maybe measured by market share gains.
Or managed business risk, perhaps measured by how many critical risks were actually identified beforehand. These are business outcomes.
And these then cascade down to alignment goals and figure 4.8. What's the difference there?
Alignment goals are more specific about how INT contributes to those bigger enterprise goals. They used to be called IT-related goals.
Oh, okay. Examples.
Things like INT compliance and support for business compliance, measured by, say, the cost of IT non-compliance.
Or maybe realized benefits from INT-enabled investments, measured by whether projects actually delivered the value they promised on paper.
Exactly. The cascade provides that essential line of sight. It shows how managing some specific IT process ultimately helps achieve a measurable business goal. It stops INT from operating in a vacuum.
Okay, that gives us a really solid grasp of the structure from Chapter 4. We've got the building blocks, the components. We've got the key actions, the objective split between governance and management.
The factors that influence tailoring design factors and focus areas. And the way to link it all to the business, the goals cascade.
Right. So now let's shift just slightly and look into Chapter 5, COBIT governance and management objectives.
Okay, so Chapter 5 really just elaborates on those 40 specific objectives that were introduced as part of the core model back in Chapter 4. Figure 5.1 is the master list.
And the key thing Figure 5.1 adds is the purpose statement for each objective, right? Gives you that next layer of detail.
Precisely. It tells you what each objective is ultimately trying to achieve.
Now, obviously, we can't go through all 40 right now, but maybe picking out a few examples would give a good feel for the scope.
Good idea. Let's grab one from the governance domain, EDM. How about EDM 01? Ensured Governance Framework Setting and Maintenance.
Okay, what's its purpose?
Its purpose is basically to make sure you have a solid, consistent approach to INT governance, one that's integrated with the overall enterprise governance, all aimed at making sure you actually realize the value you expect from INT.
So setting up the system itself makes sense. How about from the management side? Maybe APO align, plan, organize.
Okay, let's look at APO 02. Managed strategy. Its purpose isn't just about having an IT strategy in isolation, it's about supporting the enterprise's digital transformation strategy, making sure INT has a clear roadmap aligned with delivering business value.
Nice connection to the broader business strategy. What about BAI, build, acquire, implement?
Let's take BAI 03. Managed Solutions Identification and Build. This one's focused on making sure that when you develop or buy new INT solutions, they get delivered effectively. Think agile, scalable, on time, on budget. It's the core of your delivery pipeline.
Critical for getting things done. And DSS, deliver, service, support, something operational.
Definitely. DSS 04. Managed continuity is a big one. Its purpose is all about resilience, ensuring the business can adapt, keep operating, and maintain availability even if there is a major disruption. Your BCDR objective, essentially.
Business continuity, disaster recovery. Yeah, essential. Okay, one more MEA, monitor, evaluate, assess.
Let's look at MEA 01, Managed Performance and Conformance Monitoring. The purpose here is transparency. It's about continuously keeping an eye on performance and compliance across everything, making sure you're hitting goals and can course correct if needed.
Monitoring the whole system. Got it.
These few examples really show the breadth, don't they? Those 40 objectives cover the whole life cycle, from high-level direction setting and strategy through building and running things, down to monitoring how well it's all working.
And this list of 40, plus the components we talked about earlier, that is the COBIT core reference model.
That's it. That's the heart of it.
Okay, so that gives us a really strong overview. Chapter 4 laid out the fundamental building blocks, components, objectives, domains, design factors, the goals cascade for alignment.
And Chapter 5 gave us a look at the specific purpose behind each of those 40 core governance and management objectives.
Understanding these fundamentals is, well, fundamental to actually using COBIT effectively, isn't it?
Absolutely. It helps you see the structure, the logic, how all these different pieces are meant to fit together to deliver business value, manage risk, and use resources wisely.
It gives you that map you mentioned earlier.
A map of the INT governance and management landscape, yeah.
So for you listening, now that you have this grounding in COBIT's core concepts and the list of objectives, here's something to think about.
Given the unique mix of design factors in your specific enterprise, your strategy, your risks, your size, all those things we listed.
And considering the detail in those 40 objectives, how does your specific context change which of those objectives become the most critical ones for you to focus on right now? Where should your improvement efforts be concentrated?
That's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? Thinking through those design factors is the key to tailoring, to prioritizing. And that's exactly what the COBIT Design Guide helps you do in more detail.
Indeed. And perhaps we can explore performance management or dive deeper into that tailoring process in a future deep dive.